Hello and welcome to the Faithless Brewing podcast. I am your host, Dan Schriever, also known as Cavedan Online, and I'm joined this week not by David Robertson, he is traveling, so instead we have my guy from Argentina. You know him, you love him, it's Emi Sagasti.
Heyo! Hey Dan, how is it going? I was also told David was gonna be here today, and I just got a text all of a sudden yesterday like, hey, you know that about David? Yeah, he's on a trip.
So, Emi, you're back in.
Emi, you're back in. Getting here, you bad lad. And here I am. How is everybody doing?
Well, I mean, it's good to be here talking Magic with you. In terms of how everything else is going, it's been a week. It's been a pretty bad week, actually, as far as like U.S. life and politics. I don't know if you've been following this from down in Buenos Aires.
I get the news, like I just get the big scopes. I think your system works in a way that's so completely different than anything else in the world that I just can't grasp exactly what's happening, because you're the only country I know that works with, I don't know exactly, with precedent.
Oh, you mean like how the courts have to, in theory, follow the precedent of the court in the past?
So I don't get exactly the consequences of the actions that have happened. I do know that. But I get the bigger image, the big scope, which, if I'm not mistaken, is that every state gets to now select on its own the legality regarding it, right?
Yeah, that's basically exactly it. So for a long time, it was protected by a Supreme Court decision. So the right for a person to choose, the right to privacy, which extended to a woman's right to make choices about her own reproductive health, you could not make a law banning abortion because that would violate what the Supreme Court had decided.
Oy.
And they overturned that ruling. So now each state is allowed to make laws banning it. And this would include in the future, if or when, the conservatives take over the presidency or the Senate, they could, in theory, promote a ban nationwide.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough.
So it's kind of an in-between state. I mean, they've been working towards this for decades. So much so that it almost like didn't really compute for me. As a kid growing up, we learned that, women have the right to choose, and this is a good thing, but there are also always people on the other side, and politicians have to weigh in, like, where do you fall on this debate, as they call it? But if it's up to the courts, like, why was it ever a debate? Well, it turns out that, there's been like this 40-year campaign to like stack the courts with judges and get the political winds aligned just right, and now they just overturned it.
Yeah, it's sort of insane looking at from the other side, right? From a country where that constant arguing if it should be legal or not is a constant thing that's going today, rather than what we're used to, right? Like, it's not seeing a country that has already seen its established thing lose it while you're fighting for it. When every single year there's multiple marches here by women looking for that same right.
So what is the situation in Argentina?
So it was starting last year, there was a possible vote in the Senate, but it's still really far away from becoming a law. But the thing is, the country is completely divided on it, because it isn't seen as a right here yet, because it never was. So as it has never been, it's like the first step, it's convincing the rest of the country it should be, because a lot of people will just be like, why should it be? The same arguments that get used there are used here in much more numbers, right? Like the things you will hear, people will just use abortion as a way to, as a prevention method rather than as an alternative, or as a safekeeping alternative. You start hearing those things by the millions and they just pile up.
So is it a religious thing? I mean, is there a large Catholic presence?
Argentina is a Catholic country today. I think USA is also, and it's both. It's mostly a religious thing, I think, if I had to guess. But there's also a lot of movement in like saving the life, right? The biggest argument here is always regarding, is it alive, is it not, and are you actually killing someone? And that's like the crux of the argument.
I see.
But yeah, so it's sad to see a country that already had it established just getting revoked, like all of a sudden, because there wasn't like a turmoil before it, right? It was like, or at least I didn't see any setup for it, like any previous announcement.
No, there was a leaked document from mid-May. Essentially, the justices had like drawn up their like a draft version of the decision, and what finally came out was essentially saying what they said in the leaked draft. But I mean, this is like the thing that, in some sense, we've been preparing for this because this is what it's always about when you're fighting over, who gets to appoint justices to the Supreme Court. One of the big coups that Trump actually succeeded in was putting 3 justices on the court, and now it's 6-3 in favor of conservatives.
Yeah.
So I think like the moment of it is like, it's a lot to take in, and what's really confusing and I think scary for a lot of people, myself included, is just like not quite sure, not just what it means right now, but what it signals for where things are going.
What it shows in the long term, like if they can just revoke this from a day to another, what can happen in the long while?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the concerns. There's also like the very real immediate concern that, I mean, this is going to kill a lot of people. I'm not talking about killing babies. I'm talking about like actual alive people. People you know and love will be suffering from this. I mean, I want to say like it shouldn't be a debate, but actually that's not really the right approach. I think it should be debated. I do think that people's minds can be changed on this. Like I feel like a lot of the opposition to the idea of abortion is actually a little bit misguided and maybe just not quite empathetic enough. And part of it's rooted in, okay, if you grew up in certain religious settings or maybe just in certain political circles, you're used to hearing people say this, so it sounds normal. But I feel like if you do like have more conversations with people on the other side who are pro-abortion, I don't mean just like pro-choice, but like pro-abortion, like this is important. I think it is possible to hopefully convince more people that actually this is something we should be fighting for.
So, as a bit of introspection into the debate topic, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm actually a sociology student in a public university here in Argentina. Public universities are free. For some reason, Argentinian left, as is common in most countries, Argentinian left is pro-choice, Argentinian right is pro-life. Before being a sociology student in a public university, I was an engineering student in a private one. Which means I have seen both sides of the argument discussed dozens, if not hundreds of times. And I have never seen anyone change its mind, and that's due that the debate is 99.9% of the time based on a crux idea that cannot be changed, which is regarding the fact if you're actually taking a life or not. I have no problem in saying I am pro-choice, of course. However, what I mean is, I know a lot of people who are pro-life, not because they're trying to take the rights out of women, but rather because they have been convinced that they are actually taking a life in doing so. And you cannot change a person's mind regarding that.
Well, what if you can? And we just haven't found the right way to do so yet.
Maybe some people can change that topic, but not in a debate. It will have to be a personal experience. It will have to be something bigger, I think. Because it's something so intrinsic in a person's thought, like you just cannot change a person's belief regarding a life. It's just something too deep in its own mind, right? Like it's just layers upon layers of belief constructed upon a single thing. That's gonna lead to that argument going completely different ways. So even with people that you can just agree to disagree, getting them to just getting on the same side is always gonna be tough. And I'm of course not talking about fanatics. I'm not talking about people doing this for... Of course, people doing this are doing this for reasons completely unforgivable and for completely, probably drastically egoistical reasons. But the normal people are the ones that will support this, right? This has to be done not only by politics, but because a lot of people agree with this. And I think not all those people are assholes.
No, I mean, what I'm picturing when I think about this is, I mean, I have a pretty large extended family, so I'm thinking of like, people in my family, cousins, aunts, some friends. In the past, we've never made progress on this particular topic, but it wasn't as urgent because, it was settled law. But now I'm thinking about it like, okay, like we better have this conversation again. Like,
I mean,
I understand what you're saying, that it's not going to be easy, but I just have to choose to be a little more optimistic about it.
I think it's more like protests work as long as they are done correctly. At least they have worked here. And that's because they show that the majority of the people are agreeing on this topic. However, whenever there's here a pro-decision march, there's also a pro-life march exactly on the other street, right?
Oh, it's the same here. Yeah.
Here we have what's called the el panuelo verde and el panuelo azul, which are like the white, the green handkerchief and the blue one, each signifying something, and people just wear that in their. You will see people with that exact thing tied to their backpacks as they walk down the street or as they go to college. Like, public's opinions here regarding that topic are actually a cause of constant debate because it's an ongoing fight for years.
Yeah, but I don't actually think it's 50-50, at least in the US. Like some initial polling in the wake of the decision. Among women, it was like 67% opposed to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, 33% in favor. Among men, it was like 50-50. And that was like a little concerning. If it's men who are just like, yeah, sure, you're killing a baby, like that tells me it's like a little bit of like a lack of empathy.
That's part of the issue. That's always going to be it. Like, of course, on these rallies, you're going to see mostly women as well in here because most people look at their own asses, right? Like, looking at the day-to-day people, and that's exactly what you will see 50% in men, while that's 2/3 to 1 in women. Alongside the fact that it really depends on what part of the country you're living. Here in the capital, I know most people are actually pro-choice, but if you go down to, like, the provinces, it's going to be the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think in the United States, you will see states that are quite clearly one-sided and on the other.
Yeah, and you'll be able to tell now because their laws will be drastically different.
But for example, here, during the last year protest regarding the topic, one of the most mentioned subjects was a 12-year-old girl who was forced to give birth.
And we have that here happening too. It's really horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it also was just like, I feel like a little bit overwhelmed sometimes just with like a steady stream of bad news and setbacks on politics, on, you know, whatever else is going on in the United States. I don't talk about it much on the cast because it's not really related to Magic. And it's also just like, yeah, that's not why you're here, why you're listening, I assume. But it does run the risk of reinforcing the sense that, okay, we shouldn't talk about it, or there's actually nothing to say, nothing to do about it. There's a sense of helplessness that kind of sets in after a while.
I think that whenever you have the slightest degree of popularity or voice, or, you know, people will hear to you, it is not only your right, but also your responsibility to show in these times of turmoil what side you're on, or at least show that you are supporting of a cause. Because if people don't speak, who does, right? I'm not saying we are the ones that's going to convince the idea in thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But if we don't do it with a few thousands, why would the bigger ones do it, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I'm glad that you are young and have courage. It's always safest to not touch these topics.
You're going to lose people, absolutely, because not 100% of our audience is going to agree with us, and that's why I'm respectful to the other side, as long as they do so with not bad intentions, because I can't change the way people were raised. I can't change the way people will believe. I can only show support to the people I think deserve the right to do so. And if this makes someone stop hearing our podcast, I'm not sorry about it. It's a 20-minute chat regarding one of the most weird and probably catastrophic changes for a lot of people's life. And if I can spare 20 minutes to it, and if you don't want to hear this, you will even have a button that will skip you to the end of it. If that's enough to take someone away, then I'm not gonna change my way of discussing it due to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to think that most of our listeners kind of know where we stand on these things, although actually we haven't really talked about it before, so...
We haven't discussed it, but you have talked about how you felt in the Discord, and I have made my comment from time to time regarding the things. So I don't think this is a shock to anyone to know what side of the street we are on. But it's just, you know, sometimes you just need to say that, sometimes you just need to talk about it. You need people to hear you talking about it, and you need to let it out. Sometimes the world is turning against you, sometimes things are not going the way they should. And when things are tough, there's no reason not to discuss it. Doom scrolling is never a good idea, Dan. Doom scrolling is gonna be the end of you while in these times.
Oh, this is not about...
No, I know, I'm just letting you know. Doom scrolling is the end of you. Doom scrolling is the end of anyone's psyche. Like, it's just gonna destroy you. And at this time, sometimes it's better to just let steam out and just not focus on what's happening online or what people will think. Like, being completely honest, if someone disagrees with me regarding this topic, please, if you want to discuss it, I'm always willing to debate. I love debate, I love talking. But if you just want to shout at me, you can shout into the void and I won't mind.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if someone does want to have a just honest discussion about it, we're here for that. I don't know where it will go, but I don't think it's the kind of thing where, once you realize that we have whole different views from you, like there's no path forward for us.
I mean, it's been a few years of weird stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
We have had debates regarding vaccines, we have debates regarding abortion, regarding quarantine, regarding masks. And the world is in a weird, gloomy place where you just feel like your decisions don't matter because they are being made by people larger than us.
That's exactly it.
And I think the only advice I can give to that is to keep your head up and go to the people you care about and stick with them and know that you will pull through it, and if you have to find your way out, you will. And that's for everybody, not just for you. That, like, keep your heads up. Like, if the worst is to come, just let it come, and if it's just even if it has came, it's all better after now. There's no point in just surrendering to the wave.
The way that we encounter these things tends to be on our phones or our TVs, and it's like a very lonely experience. So it's important to find your people. Like, it helped me to just like get out in the crowd. My wife and I went to, I wouldn't call it a protest, it was a rally in downtown Raleigh last week, and it was just helpful to just be around other people. Even though my immediate reaction is I don't know what to do, I don't have to have all those answers myself. Like, people have been working on this, there are people to talk to. You're not alone in this, and there's some comfort in that.
Yeah, and you will always find comfort in either of both sides. And right now the thing is just sticking to your ground and fight the waves of what to come. I have seen a lot of people on our Discord assisting the protest and just being a part of trying to change things. And I have also seen people sharing safety during protest protocol. And that's just insanity, right? Like, the fact you have to know how to protect yourself as you're going to a peaceful protest.
And there's other things you can do too. I mean, if getting out on the streets is not your thing, there's a lot of work still to do, and it's going to be a marathon. I don't know where it ends, if it ever ends.
It's a weird couple of years regarding a lot of topics, and the world has changed. A lot of people will say for worse. I think most people will say for worse. And there's nothing to do but keep your head up, sadly. Like, what you're looking for is words of encouragement. All I can say is you will find comfort in the people you love. You are safe right now, and if you're not safe because of the changes, I really hope it's going to be better. At least in the long run.
Well, we're not going anywhere. We'll be here today, we'll be here on Monday, we'll be here next week, so...
Are you going to be here next week? No, you're not. I am here next week.
I won't, but you will be.
Yeah, as you see that, guys, the CEO always lies.
If I say it's Friday, you know that it's not Friday. It's definitely not Friday. We have never once recorded on a Friday when I have said it's Friday.
I think once we recorded on a Sunday where you said it was Sunday.
That was just by chance.
Yeah, once.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, this is not meant to be like a definitive statement or anything, but just maybe an open invitation.
No, it's an open invitation to debate, and it's an open invitation, at least from my side. If anybody needs to talk, if anybody needs an ear, if anybody needs a shoulder, if somebody just wants to distract themselves talking about magic or actually discussing the topics, or just anything you need, you know how to contact me. I have a lot of... You can find me Discord, Twitter. Sometimes just having a ear to hear you, even if it's better than shouting into the void. And if you want to make it public, we have the Discord where you can discuss, and if not, you can find me everywhere. And just having someone to talk to, having someone to air your problems a lot of the time is enough to help somebody stay put. Just keep your head up.
Well said.
There's this YouTuber I have been looking for a while whose name is Tomato Venus. Disregarding the name from Tomato Venus, the guy is a speedrunner that in every single one of his videos... This is something I wanted to discuss with you if I could do, so I'm going to take this as a yes. In every single one of his speedrun videos, the speedrun gets a bit slow, he takes like 30-40 seconds to tell everybody that it's going to be alright. That if anybody needs to hear this, it's not the end, that the things are going to keep going. And if you're feeling down, just please know it's going to be better. And if you need help, you always know where to find us or actually real help. It's just like 30-40 seconds of trying to reaffirm people in a low place that it's going to be better. And it sounds crazy, but when you need to hear that, even hearing it from a random speedrunner named Tomato Enus on YouTube helps.
What was his name?
Tomato Enus.
I thought you said tomato, and then the second word, I won't repeat what I thought you said, but that was interesting.
Wait, the correct word is, I think, the word you're hearing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And
But that's an important message, actually, so who am I to...
At least, so I don't think it's wrong during our episodes, just a 30-second segment, letting people know it's going to be better. And just people knowing that you are heard and there's support for you. Even now and even later, disregarding of what happens.
Well, I feel better hearing you say that, so it's working.
See? The power of tomato eggs.
All right, Morde, do you want to talk about Little Magic since we're here?
Since we're here, now that we're here.
Well, speaking about activism, we got a little activist deck building going on here.
That's a long shot. Union.
Was that not a good transition? That's actually the first item on my outline of decks to talk about.
That was excellent. But you're missing some housekeeping to do.
Correct. Yes, housekeeping. Yeah, before we dive in, so what we want to do with the rest of our time here today is we're going to talk about some of the new technology. Things are always changing. Pioneer has just been an amazing place to see the new tech coming in. Modern, people are trying, people are out there working, so we're going to look at some of the developments there. That's today's show. On Monday, we are going to have our brew session. We're going to take a look at Obnixilis, the adversary, give him a second chance, perhaps. We will tell you about our testing with moderation and maybe check in out our monthly project on Ginny Faye. We also have some new patrons that we want to welcome to the Faithless family. They are Ben H., Keith S., and Pink Hat Boy. Also want to give a shout out to Michael R., who has gone up a tier in their pledge. So just a reminder that if you want to support us, patreon.com/Faithless Brewing, that's where you can do so, and you'll get access to our Discord channel and other perks as well.
Exactly, and you can support more screaming weird stuff into the void. You know it, guys. Seeing number go up makes my monkey brain go brrr. That's how it works. I'm a simple man.
All right, so
regarding the activist deck building, around 10 days ago, I got a weird message in a Discord by Bob49 saying, guys, what happens if you play an extremely bad card? And the answer everybody gave was, you're gonna get banned. And when we were wondering at, we see a screenshot of a deck featuring beloved card from I don't know which set, from I don't know which era, because that card is terrible, named Sacred Ground. Sacred Ground, for anybody that has no idea which it is, which I'm gonna guess is everybody that doesn't play Commander every single day of their lives, is a 2-mana enchantment, 1 and a white, that reads, whenever a land you control gets destroyed by an ability or spell an opponent's control, you may return that land into play. However, as it was coded on MTGO, it said, whenever a land you control gets destroyed, return it to play. This means it was a fast bond combined with Ramming Up Excavator for 2 mana and not paying life, which was a tad too insane.
Wait, a fast bond? So you get to just keep doing this until you run out of lands to fetch?
Yeah, you really that's because you fetch it gets back, you fetch it gets back, you fetch it gets back, you fetch it gets back.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was 2 mana win the game. Because you got to infinite go score to your opponent, for example.
Well, they would get their land back too, right?
No, you go score it again. And again. And again.
But don't their lands just keep coming back?
It's Sacred Ground on both sides? I don't think so.
Well, actually, I mean, I haven't seen this book. I didn't even know this card was modern legal.
No, like Sacred Ground sides whenever... So... Sacred Ground, what Sacred Ground should do is that if you get Ghost Quarter, you get your land back, right?
Yeah,
What it did was that
correct.
if you Ghost Quarter someone, you got your own Ghost Quarter back.
Oh, and they did not get their land. Okay, I was misreading this bug. I thought that both players got their
No,
lands
and if you
back.
fetch, you just got your fetch back again and again, and you kept fetching.
Okay, so this is blatant cheating. This is
Yeah, this was so. What did this player do? He played it in an escape shift deck where you can just go turn 1 Arboreal Grazer, turn 2 lands, Sacred Ground, fetch, escape shift win.
That's very impressive deck building.
I mean, no, that's not very impressive deck building. The other deck is very impressive bad deck building. So there's two decks regarding Sacred Ground. The first deck made by this activist known as Swift Workite, and why are we calling it an activist? Because after getting reprimanded by the public, his answer was, I want to play this card in Penny Dreadful for a year, and I have been unable to do so due to it being bugged.
So he finally took the bugged card, put it into Escape Shift deck, entered a high-level tournament, and made it top 32.
Exactly. Which is weird, because if you just want to make it posted, you can just go 5-2, but he decided to go all in on a 6-1. Which is a bit shocking, because how did he go 6-1? Like, I want to give him the small amount of credit that's saying this card is so busted, I don't think he could have lost a game without giving it away. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe he decided to not go 7-0. On the other side, we have... So this guy made a Escape Shift deck, other white, and added Sacred Ground, and just went with it. On the other side, we had someone on a league just 100% going for the full-on exploit. Did you see the Cascade deck?
I saw this in the 5-0 dump from TheWatchWander. So this person, I don't think they're an activist unless they come forward and
No, this guy's a simply asshole. It's simply an asshole. There's no more to say, there's nothing more than that. He just went full
So this
on.
person was not content to just draw their Sacred Ground some of the time. They actually wanted to cascade for it, so they would have it every single time.
So they're playing 8 Cascade spells on a band deck, and everything else is infinite mana payoffs. Because they have any Cascade spell plus a fetch land or Ghost Quarter is an instant win. And they just went hard with it. And that's insanity. And even the sideboard sucks, the deck building is bad, and that's what annoys me the most. How can you exploit a bug and be so bad of a deck builder to make these choices?
Well, I mean, okay, so there's a Karn Wishboard. It's not totally crazy.
There's a Karn Wishboard. Okay, no, I get that. But why are you playing one Eternal Witness? Why are you playing one Failure to Comply? Why are you playing one Verdict Main deck? Why are you playing a 10 mana Ulamog? And why are you playing Ultimate One Hydra instead of good cards? Like, you know what I mean?
Searching for the reason here. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah, you want to win via cheating, and even then you suck at the game. That's the only thing I can even ponder.
So there's no Emrakul 15 here.
This guy, and I'm gonna say the worst part, this guy exploited the bug without caring about it, and still only has one trophy on MTGO, which is this one. Which means he either played a single league and got a 5-0, or he was such a bad deck builder and player that he couldn't get more than 1-5-0, even exploiting the bug.
I hope that this player does not listen to this episode.
I hope he does.
Well, who knows? I mean, maybe they were so moved by the other person's Swift Workite's activist movement that they wanted to get in on the action before. I mean, actually, Magic Online responded today and banned the card temporarily.
Let me check. Let me check who was first. WatchWander was first.
Oh, WatchWander was first.
7 p.m. on June 25th.
Okay.
I love that the show lets you see the last trophy from people.
But no, Swift Workite was also on June 25th.
Same
and
day.
They played it earlier in the day in the challenge.
This also shows me Cavedan has 0 modern trophies.
Correct. I never represented otherwise. I never claimed to get a modern trophy.
I was going to say when your last trophy was, only to come up with the answer that there was none.
No, I'm sitting this season out, saving myself for the next trophy.
Saving
race.
yourself for the next league, for the big leagues.
Exactly.
So yeah, Sacred Ground was banned from every single format today, Wednesday 29th, which means you're not gonna find it anymore. The card has not been fixed, but it has been banned from everything. Which is the MTGO way. Why fix it when we can ban it?
So that was a fun little excursion into the world of Magic Online bugs. But if you're wondering why is there this Sacred Ground deck in the top 32 of the Modern Challenge, that is the reason. That's the story. You can check out Fire Shoes. That's Robert Taylor at Fire Shoes on Twitter. He's got the tweets. He's got the receipts. He's got the discussion with the pilot.
Where you will find possibly activists who I'm not judging until I have all the info, and an asshole who has 0 deck building capabilities. And that's what annoys me, that it's the same that when you lose, that like this happened a lot to me when I lost to the Abundant Growth bag, and it was like, I don't care if I had lost a good game, I care when I'm losing to Merfolk. Here's the same thing. I don't care if I vote with the bag, I care if I vote with the bag while being bad. It hurts me to my very soul.
Alright, so we're going to jump around a bit. I think we're going to move over mostly to Pioneer for this next segment, because that's where I found a lot of innovation.
Yes, sir.
Got about 25 lists here. I've tried to condense them into meaningful trends. We'll see if this actually succeeds in presenting something coherent.
You know I am incapable of doing that.
Yeah.
You know I'm incapable of cohesive thoughts. I just jump around.
Let's talk about Illuminator Virtuoso. Illuminator Virtuoso, 1 and a white. This is from New Capenna, so it's on theme for our season, New Capenna season. Human Rogue, 1/1 double strike. Whenever Illuminator Virtuoso becomes the target of a spell you control, it connives. That is to say, you draw, you discard. If you discard a non-land, you grow your Illuminator Virtuoso with a +1/+1 counter.
And first of all, before we go on, Virtuoso is backed with Ground Rift. For anybody that doesn't know that.
Bugged like it doesn't work, or like it doesn't?
It doesn't work, and it should work if it's the only creature. For some reason, MTGO, if it's the only creature, it doesn't consider it as if it's being targeted multiple times. As long as there's any other creature on board, it counts.
Alright, so what's going on with Illuminator Virtuoso? Well, if you look in Pioneer, you'll find that right when New Capenna came out, Boros Heroic, which is, a tier 2, sometimes tier 1.5 deck in Pioneer, started testing it, and people liked it a lot, and they found that, okay, this is actually greatly improving the power of my heroic draws, right? I'm already playing cards like Ancestral Anger, God's Willing, Defiant Strike. Homestead Courage is a card that has been in and out of the heroic list in Pioneer.
I can't believe they cut that card. That card for me is insane.
Yeah, it was interesting, right? I mean, it looks so powerful. It's a single white to cast, a single white to flash it back. It puts a +1/+1 counter on your creature and gives it vigilance until the end of the turn. So it's just really cheap, two targets on your creature. And you can even discard it. So I don't know why it had fallen out of heroic for a while, but now that you have this connive creature as your kind of featured threat, Homestead Courage is amazing. You can even discard it for value if you
exactly
don't have anything else, but you should probably just cast it twice and kill them.
And get double triggers going.
Yeah, so I've been getting crushed by this deck quite a lot. It's actually very, very strong against the green decks, which is one of the more popular decks right now in Pioneer. So what happens when a deck like Heroic gets a cool new addition? Well, people start to notice. It takes a while, but they start to think, okay, what can Illuminator Virtuoso do for me? Right? Maybe my deck, which is not as streamlined or not as good as Red-White Heroic, could also use this card. So players who are in the Auras space have tried it. I'm looking at a green-white Auras deck, a black-white Auras deck. These are both in the 5-0s this week in Pioneer. Cutting into that 2 slot. I mean, you used to expect to see a full boat of SRAM, a full boat of Light Paws, and now they're saying, okay, let's give Illuminator Virtuoso a chance.
Why is this Mardu? Why does this have only 1 red card? Why? Is this
Which deck?
Is this David? Adding a random off-color third color to your deck? The Mardu Auras. It's not also, it's Mardu. It has 1 Messenger Speed. It has 1 red aura. It has a one-off.
There's no red lands in there. There's
Mana Confluence.
So you're not actually casting the Messenger Speed. You're searching for this with Light Paws.
Okay. That's a reasonable argument.
So Messenger Speed is red. It gives your enchanted creature haste and trample. But Light Paws lets you search the deck and just put it directly onto Light Paws for the kill.
I'm gonna take that and still complain. Because this is Mardu, and it seems like something David would make, all of a sudden adding a random third color to a deck that's 2.
I understand.
Sorry, David, I love you.
Okay, so black-white auras, they kept their 4 Light Paws, they kept their Force Rams. It looks like they cut into their 1-drop, so they trimmed on Hateful Eidolons and All-State of Life's Bounty.
In order to add 2 Virtuosos.
Yeah, add 2 Virtuosos. This green-white deck, I would call it almost like a Hexproof deck, but like only halfway there. I'm calling it like half Hexproof. This is from Moyashi 6498. They're playing Gladecover Scout, but they are not playing Basara Tower Archer, which is the 2-mana Hexproof creature. Instead, they're just playing Selfless Saviors, Generous Visitors, that's kind of surprising, and 4 Illuminator Virtuosos, 2 Light Paws. I don't quite understand the numbers here.
I didn't know that card existed. The Tower Archer.
The Tower Archer? Green for a 2/1 Hexproof.
Reach.
I think it has reach. Yeah. I mean, it's a terrible card, so...
It makes sense to card it, yeah, it's terrible. But yeah, this is a weird deck.
This green one feels like it's being carried by Illuminator Virtuoso. I don't see the other cards actually getting there. Like Generous Visitor, I want to like it, but I just don't think it's that powerful. This is a single green spirit, 1/1. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
The good thing about the Visitor is if you have 2 creatures, you go double threat by putting the auras on one and putting the counters on the other one. Allows you to at least try to diversify your threats.
That's the best case, yes.
Also, as every single deck, I think all these decks have literally 2 copies of Unlicensed Cards in their sideboard. As every deck...
Oh yeah, you have to.
But everybody has 2. Not 3, not 1.
Yeah, no, you're only allowed to play 2.
Yeah, you're only allowed, and you are forced to. Like, it's not your option anymore.
That's why it's 46 right now. You have to play 2.
Also, I think everybody knows by now I hate Ledger Shredder. And I have had this debate for the past week where I have been saying, like, mid-May, I was discussing with the Argentinian group that Ledger Shredder was going to be worth 15 ticks by the end of June. Because I keep saying the card is horribly overplayed. And I'm gonna die by my blade.
I hope you didn't short sell a bunch of Ledger Shredders.
Never. I never own Ledger Shredder.
You would not financially recover from that.
I will never financially recover from this move.
I mean, you can short sell on Magic Online if you have a rental service. You can rent Ledger Shredders, sell them, and then try to buy them back later. But you shouldn't do that. That's against the terms.
Guys, don't listen to the CEO advice.
Do not sell Ledger Shredders at 15 and hope to recoup them later.
Don't go against Mana Traders, everybody. Mana Traders is good. Mana Traders is love. Mana Traders is life. Hashtag not sponsored.
So Illuminator Virtuoso, experimenting in Pioneer, can it make the jump to Modern? Well, Aspiring Spike thinks so. I don't know if he still thinks so, but he was tweeting a lot about this.
He loved the deck. I was watching the stream. He really enjoyed it, and he even lost a game to the bag I just mentioned, where he only had Illuminator Virtuoso on board, opponent made some Rhinos to block, and their Virtuoso should have been like an 11-11 double strike, and it was a 7-7, which cost him the game.
So explain how this deck is built. This is like a modern interpretation of Heroic.
So this is based on a really old deck, likely around the time I started playing, based around... The original deck list was Nimaus Elemental alongside Storm Spells and Metamorphose. And that just evolved completely over the years, especially with Strixhaven, because of cards like Clever Luminancer, which also had an upside from Storm, right? Because any other prowess creature, a Storm spell is meaningless. Casting Stormwind with a... Casting Ground Rift, not Storm Rift, with a Monastery Swift Spear is irrelevant. However, you cast a Ground Rift with a Clever Luminancer and all of a sudden it is a +10/+10. Same with a Nimaus Elemental. And now, also same with Illuminator Virtuoso. As you target it with every single copy of the Storms, you get another Connive trigger.
It's interesting, they all 4 of these creatures, Swift Spear, Lumimancer, Niv Magus, and Virtuoso, they use a different mechanic to grow.
They are completely different, exactly, and I love that. But now that you have a critical number of creatures that get buffed from Storm spells, Spike has even gone as far ahead as to play a Show of Confidence.
Show of Confidence. Okay, this is like the Storm card from Strixhaven.
But it only copies itself for its instant as sorcery. Puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature and gives it vigilance.
So what can we expect in the spell suite? You're talking about Ground Rift, which is only there to trigger Magecraft a bunch of times and generate copies for Niv Magus Elemental to eat.
Well, and making your creatures unblockable.
Okay, yeah, it does prevent the opponent from blocking, sure.
So then you have Emergence Cave, which is 1 white mana, creature gets protection, and it also has Rebound. Which having Rebound is really important in this deck, because I have seen Spike a lot of the time using this proactively on your opponent's turn, like your opponent casting nothing, only to get a Rebound on his turn as a free spell. Like cast this on my opponent's end step, upkeep Rebounds, give it pro green, being able to attack against Yawgmoth. And just getting that free spell. Lava Dart, Mutagenic Growth, which is the freest of spells, Manamorphose, which is, in between quotes, the free spell, Ancestral Anger, which is 1 red mana, draw a card, target gets trample, and +X/+0, where X is the number of Ancestral Angers in your graveyard. So it's a 1 red mana cantrip that targets, alongside Homestead Courage, which we described as the 1 white mana, put a counter and give vigilance with flashback. Amazingly, this deck seems to work like a burn deck, like a really aggressive deck, and the only damage spell it has is Lava Dart. It doesn't even have Bolt.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
It was something that was really discussed in the stream while we were watching it. It doesn't even have Bolt. It has almost no reach as a creature aggro deck, which is insane. And something really common was, for example, going Illuminator Virtuoso, Lava Dart it to trigger Conarm, and then Lava Dart it again. Like self-Lava Dart the Virtuoso as a way to pump it.
So it has double strikes. You're net gaining when you do this.
Exactly.
So Spike tweeted that he went 12-6 on stream the other day. I assume a 5-0 is coming. He tends to see these things through. And it's pretty cool builds.
It's a really fun deck I was seeing. It was really fast. He got crushed some games by variants. Like, one time he was facing Rhinos and he just won game 1. Game 2 he mulled down to 2 and conceded, like on the mulligan. And then game 3 he lost to the Ground Rift bag. It was devastating. And then Tron just went something like turn 1 map, turn 2 Dismember, turn 3 Thragtusk, turn 4 Yugin. And you're just like, okay, I'm dead.
Alright, so that's Illuminator Virtuoso. Speaking of Aspiring Spike, the next card that I want to talk about is Indomitable Creativity. We're back in Pioneer again. We've talked in previous weeks about how the card Titan of Industry has led to like a little bit of a resurgence of people trying to transmogrify various tokens to get the Titan of Industry into play. And the most successful builds seem to be the Gruul shell, where you have Transmogrify, you have Luca Coppercoat Outcast.
Luca.
Typically not playing the Indomitable Creativity in that build because you want to be able to take advantage of cards like Asika's Chariot.
Mm-hmm.
However, Transmogrify and Luca, these are vulnerable to removal and response. It's a very different style of deck than what we've seen, especially in Modern, of like Indomitable Creativity targeting artifact tokens.
Yeah.
This is Mana Simple, where are you when we need you? You gotta show us the way.
Zach, can you show us the way of the creativity? But I think MrRaeb might be a suitable replacement for Zach for this specific topic.
Yeah, so people are like trying to make this happen again. I know Aspiring Spike in Pioneer has been playing like a fair-ish version where when you're in Izzet colors, you have various treasure makers like Prismari Command and etc., etc. And his top end is like Torrential Gearhulks and Magma Opus, and that's it, right? Creativity is nice when you get it, but you can get a couple of Gearhulks off of it, but that's all you're getting with it. There is another way, though. You can actually win the game off creativity. If you do it for X equals 2 in Pioneer, you can get 2 creatures that combine to deal lethal damage. And we used to see this with the Locust God plus
Sage of the Falls.
The card Sage of the Falls. That's
the looter.
Causes you to keep looting until you have all the locusts you need to attack. The other way to do it is to use Xenaghost God of Revels plus a very, very large creature. And while we don't have Embercleave 15 in Pioneer, we do have Embercleave 13, and that's still usually enough. Right?
That's 26 flying damage protection from instants alongside a legendary enchantment, indestructible enchantment.
So do you think that's actually harder to disrupt than Locust God plus Sage of the Falls?
I mean, Locust God Sage of the Falls fails to any removal on Sage of the Falls, which is a lot easier to kill than Emrakul.
I suppose that's true. If people like were prepared to kill Winota with a lightning axe or something, they can easily kill Sage of the Falls.
I mean, it's really hard to kill Emrakul. I mean, you either need to kill the Emrakul, which is not easy because it's pro instance. And how do you kill an Emrakul in Pioneer?
Wandering Emperor, maybe? Yes. That's all that comes to mind.
I mean, Wandering Emperor works against one and not the other, right? Like, it stops Emrakul, but it doesn't stop Locust Core plus Sage.
Well, the trend right now is Xenagos plus Emrakul. And we have MrRaeb to thank for this. A friend of the show, terrific brewer. He's been working on his Izzet build, which uses this, I mean, it's almost like a Splinter Twin finish, right? When he casts Creativity X equals 2, he is going to get Emrakul and Xenagos. But what's the rest of the deck?
So the rest of the deck is exactly ways to make sure he has those 2 artifacts. Mostly via Secrets of the Key, which took me a second to even remember what that card was, and Big Score. Alongside that, another more secret way to make 2 tokens is Soken Sun.
More secret than Secrets of the Key?
At least more playable.
I don't think we've seen very much from Secrets of the Key. I initially flagged it as, okay, what if this was good in Creativity, but it's just so slow. It was so slow that I couldn't even use it in Draft, which was a little sad. It's 1 to cast, 4 to flashback. It makes a clue when you cast it. It makes 2 clues when you flash it back. It's like a 3 for 1.
It's like 11 mana, draw 3 cards. What could go wrong?
Exactly. This is Tireless Tracker's numbers, baby.
I mean, if Tireless Tracker made its way back to Modern, why can't Secrets of the Key?
So Big Score is just the upgraded version of Unexpected Windfall, but I'm happy to see MrRaeb unlocking the power of Secrets of the Key. He didn't stop there, though. He actually is playing full set of Fire Prophecy. This is 3 damage, lets you tuck a card from your hand, so if you've accidentally drawn one of your creatures, you just put it back.
Yeah, it's keep putting back in the bottom because if you just draw, you have 1 copy of it, which means drawing a copy and not being able to shuffle it back means you cannot combo.
Exactly. He's also got 4 Valakut Awakenings for the same reason. The other card that you might not expect is Arcane Infusion. This is blue-red instant. It also flashes back for 5. Look at your top 4, choose an instant or sorcery, put it in your hand. The other 3 go on the bottom. It's just good, clean card advantage. Decent selection. You see more cards than anticipate, and you get to do it twice. When all of the cards you're looking for, all your Secrets of the Keys, all your big scores, your Indomitable Creativities, these are all eligible to be found off the Art Infusion. This is much more efficient than something like Pieces of the Puzzle, for example.
Yeah, and it also allows you to find land sometimes, thanks to Valakut Awakening and Spikefield Hazard. So worst case scenario, it can actually transform into a land. The only card you cannot get that might be relevant is Shark Typhoon, but I don't think that's much of an issue when you have such big number of instants as sorceries.
Yeah, this is a nice bit of deck building here. I also noticed a player, Graugot, who was using the same concept, but instead of pairing the red cards with blue, they were going almost mono-red, just splashing for 2 Wandering Emperors and 4 Birth of Militus. But in order to support this, they were playing 4 big scores and 4 unexpected windfalls. So really relying on that effect. Full 8 copies.
On the treasure-making side. Also 4 Fables.
4 Fables. Is MrRaeb playing Fable? I guess he's not.
No, he's not. And the reason for that, I was actually reading down the Twitter post, and he said his main plan is making sure opponent's removal is completely dead.
Interesting.
Sort of when you play like Reanimator decks, he doesn't want the opponent to have any single possibility of getting a 1-for-1 trade on his removal. So no creatures that he can't rely on. And that's exactly why he's going full on artifacts. Except for weird more specific cases that are already 2-for-1s like Shark Typhoon or Soken Sun.
So that's 2 different ways to win off Indomitable Creativity and Pioneer, and perhaps an indication that we should be looking more closely at the Big Score Unexpected Windfall package. Another player, Togno, actually took this to the next step, which is saying, okay, if cards like Big Score and Unexpected Windfall are good, maybe I don't even need Creativity. Maybe I just have a very compact endgame of ramping to Hullbreaker Horror, and I just built Izzet control with Windfall cards. Eventually get my treasures, cast Hullbreaker Horror, and win from there, and they got a 5-0.
I love that it's playing a really 2018 modern idea, which was You know this control deck with no creatures? What if post-sideboard I just add 4 Young Pyromancers? I just go the good old beatdown plan. I love that. I love Young Pyromancer. I want to play Young Pyromancer. I miss Mardu Pyro. I love Mardu Pyro.
Yeah, I heard you were working on a 12 Pyromancer deck in Modern the other day.
I love making bad decisions. And I love Young Pyromancer. Who would have said so?
So, the next trend is red decks writ large.
Oh, I saw this. I love this. I'm going to take the protagonism from Dan and just go on. Big Red is back. We got Chonky Red again. And I just freaking love the name Chonky Red. So I'm really happy that they stopped playing Burn and we're playing Chonky again.
I don't think this counts as Chonky. I mean, there's no Glory Bringers.
If it plays Torbrand, it's Chonky. If it plays multiple 4-drops, it's Chonky. I have no further arguments.
There's 2 Torbrands and 1 Hazoret, and that's the top of the curve.
That's all I need. It plays 4 Anax. How aggressive can a 4 Anax deck be? The answer is really.
Alright, so this is like the standard deck of old.
I just love red decks. For example, in Hayashi Red, I love red decks that are not just ball to the wall aggro.
So this deck, Big Red, Chonky if you prefer, played by Stranger99 to a top 8 in the Pioneer Challenge. It's pretty unconventional as far as rounding out the curve, right? Like, how do you make room for 4 copies of Anax Hardened by the Forge, 3 Embercleaves? You end up not really playing any spells. In fact, there are so few spells that there's no prowess creep package. There's 2 Mysterious Swiftbeers, 0 Soulscar Mage.
You even have the whole playset of Kumano faces Kakasan.
Well, that's just good value. So you have 4 Kumanos, 4 Fanatical Firebrands. That's maybe a nice card against Llanowar Elves, if that's the concern.
I think that's the argument, yeah. That was what I saw Connorman saying.
Trying to get on the board with 2 drops, that means Burning Tree Emissaries to get your devotion count up, to get your Anax
bigger.
as big as you can for that delicious, delicious Embercleave.
And 3 Embercleaves, so Embercleave is back on the menu a lot of these decks. And pacing myself, there's also the Gruul version by Tarzi, which has the same idea, just taken to the next level, adding mana dorks, and I'm really sad the Gruul mana base is so bad in Pioneer.
I mean, we were saying that for years. It's got the pathway, but nothing else has improved.
This deck would not be mono red if they could afford to not be mono red.
So your green is 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Llanowar Elves, 3 Scavenging Ooze, 4 Lovestruck Beast, 1 Questing Beast. I mean, what is this? Just like Eldraine Standard? Everyone just like found their old Eldraine Standard decks and just registered them for Pioneer and won.
I mean, it's playing a... Lovestruck Beast is a hell of a card in this aggressive mid-range decks, and I love that it's playing the whole 8 Rubble Master Warboss.
This would be a great Ginny Fey deck.
So we have gone full circle. We're back to Ginny Fey, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, so a lot of people trying out various flavors of red aggro. Do you want to give a shout out to Raptor995, friend of the show? He's been working on this sweet Magda deck, and they finally got the 5-0 last week. This is one of the coolest decks in the dump. So the great promise of Magda is like, what if you not only could tap it to like generate an explosive burst of treasures, but what if you also had like dwarves, like additional dwarves?
What if I have dwarves?
Wouldn't that be amazing, right? So Toolcraft Exemplar is the only good dwarf. But Raptor995 was not satisfied with that, right? He said like, okay, we can do this.
We can play bad dwarves.
SRAM Senior Edificer is a dwarf advisor.
The Innkeeper is a halfling? Come on. That's a honorary dwarf, to say the least.
That's just basic stuff. I mean, come on. Bilbo is not a dwarf, right? He's a halfling.
That's just a cheap shot.
Okay, so you can't play SRAM if you're not playing auras, right?
Exactly.
Like, what is it doing for you? Well, it turns out the SRAM actually triggers off of equipments and vehicles. So what if I'm actually building out a Magda deck with vehicles like Asika's Chariot, like Heart of Kiran, and equipments for which we have the new reconfigure mechanic, and we can play rabbit batteries.
Oh, that's what the batteries are for.
So we have a full playset of rabbit battery. So 4 rabbit battery, 4 Toolcraft Exemplar, 4 Prosperous Innkeeper, 4 Magda, 4 SRAM. What a creature suite. That's an amazing creature suite. 4 Springleaf Drum. We're going to get our Magda tap on to ramp into these Asika's Chariots. We have 4 Fable of the Mirror Breakers, 3 Showdown of the Scalds, and there has been some spectacular screenshots that Raptor shared on our Discord of like...
I love Showdown of the Skulls. I'm so easily swayed.
Toolcraft Exemplar with like 3 extra counters on it from Showdown of the Skulls, getting buffed by Magda, cruising in, making the 5th treasure, opponent blocks, sack the 5 treasures, fetch the Embercleave.
Excellent.
Get in for like 18 damage.
Get in with like a madman. What's the justification for the Innkeeper then? Just turn 3 Asika's Chariot?
That's a great question. So I think you do want some amount of artifacts to make your Toolcraft Exemplars like a little more reliable. It gives you treasure towards Magda. It gives you a little bit of extra mana so that your Chariots and Showdowns are a little more explosive.
I'm just trying to think about when is it better than Thraben?
Well, Thraben is like a mana-hungry card that doesn't actually pressure the opponent that well, and it's not a dwarf, right?
I mean, Innkeeper doesn't pressure and it's not a dwarf. It's weird.
You could try like Gala Greeters maybe if you want tapped treasures. It's probably worse.
Besides that, I really like the deck, and I keep seeing Fable of the Mirror Breaker everywhere. Card has been surprising even in Modern nowadays, and of course, as necessary by law, 2 unlicensed cards in the sideboard. Come on, everybody! Can someone play 3 Hearths for fuck's sake?
This one triggers SRAM. When you cast your Hearth, you draw a card.
Then play 3. Why you gotta play 2? Raptor.
Well, maybe you just can't afford them. They're 45 tickets right
Raptor,
now.
I know you're hearing this program. Put a 3rd of fucking Hearth. Please.
Alright, so... lots of different red decks in the 5-0 dumps.
Yeah.
A lot of variations on mono red.
I mean, and I think if we're gonna jump out of the mono red decks, I want you to talk about what's one of the craziest decks I have seen in Pioneer in a while.
Oh, please do.
Prime Speaker Vannifar Pod.
Vannifar Pod combo,
So, when Vannifar got spoiled and released in Modern, people went quickly ahead and made the pod build. And this worked by transforming a Mana Dork into a Courier Monitor, into Rallier, into Resto Angel, not Resto Angel because Resto Angel blinks, into the weird blue Hippocampus that untaps, into Kiki, into comboing with Courier Monitor with Infinite 1 Force. So, of course, when we go down to Pioneer, we have none of those parts of the combo, right? So, how do you combo if you're not going infinite? Because why would you try to combo with a 4-drop that needs to untap? And the answer is, you don't go infinite. You just put 12 creatures on play and a Tuk-Tuk Ravelford and hope it's enough. So, what you do is you have a 1-off Courier Monitor in your deck. And you have a lot of mana drops. So let's just say you play a turn 1 Elvis Beach Stick, a turn 2 Crushing Drawbridge, which is the bridge from Eldraine that you just tap to haste your creatures. Into a turn 3 Vannifar, tap your bridge, give it haste. So you sacrifice your 1-drop, get a Courier Monitor, and tap your Vannifar. And then start sacrificing your Monitor and get a Rallier, get it back, a Rallier, get it back, a Rallier, get it back, an Extraction Specialist, get it back, an Extraction Specialist, get it back, a Specialist, get it back, a Specialist, get it back, a Mimic, copy Specialist, get it back, a Mimic, a Mimic, a Mimic. And in the last copy, you get a Tuk-Tuk Ravelford, which is a 3-mana card from Zendikar. 0-4 Defender Reach, creatures you control have haste. Sorry, 0-3. And you just attack with your army of creatures.
So my first thought was, man, this deck is so cool. They really solved it. And then after looking at it more closely, I was like, how the hell do they ever draw Vannifar in this deck?
Oh, I know they don't.
Like, there's no tutors. There's just 4 Vannifar, and you just hope that you draw it in time.
That's how it works.
So things that may throw you off is like, okay, crashing drawbridge, that stands out so much. Like, why are you playing that? It's just to give Vannifar haste.
100%.
And then if you're thinking, okay, well, I sack the drawbridge, what do I get? Do I get an extraction specialist and get the drawbridge back? And then what happens? Like, no, you don't do that. Forget that. Like, it actually does not work. You cannot go 2 to 3 and win. You have to have a 1-drop in play.
Yes.
Because all of this depends on getting the corridor monitor, of which there is only one.
So, Kurusu's version... So this is not Kurusu's version. Kurusu has not yet been able to 5-0. However, Kurusu is a mad lad. And even though I hate his deck lists, I don't hate his ideas. And he's playing 4 Fiend Artisan and a God of Calling.
I mean, that's at least respecting the math, right? It's like, this 5-0 from Europer is not respecting
So
the
that
math.
gives him 5 ways to at least look for your Vannifar.
I mean, that's something. I would just play Eldritch Evolution. Like, I don't see what's the reason not to. Like, you have plenty of bad 2-drops. You have Crashing Drawbridge. You have Voice of Resurgence here. You have Thalia.
So if I go turn 1 Dork, turn 2 Fiend Artisan, turn 3 sacrifice my Dork, get Vannifar. Next turn I can sacrifice the Dork. I can sacrifice the Artisan to get a Specialist, and it takes me an extra turn to combo off. That sucks. Where does... this hurts my soul.
So I'm not a fan of this particular build, but it was not the worst combo deck in the 5-0s. There were certainly worse combos that 5-0 this week in Pioneer. I'll name a couple. Did you know that if you have Bergi God of Storytelling in play and a Hazaret's Monument, that you can go infinite with Grinning Ignus?
I know, because Grinning Ignus is one of those cards that are just waiting to get to go combo, right? Like, no one has ever played a fair Grinning Ignus.
So Grinning Ignus, 2 in a red for a 2/2. It has such a weird ability. Pay 1 red, bounce it to your hand. You get to add 2 in a red to your mana pool. So it's just like increasing your storm count, but you're going to run out of red, right? Because every time you do this, you're down a red mana. Well, what if Berkey gives you that mana back? You also have 3 copies of Runaway Steamkin, which in a roundabout way also gives you the red mana back. And then if you want to like go infinite, you add another cost reducer. We have 4 Hazaret's Monument for that purpose. And then you can actually like loot through your entire deck, because Hazaret's Monument also draws and discards. Make mana. It looks like the kill card of choice is Devilish Valet.
Also, Grinning Ignus for some reason is an elemental, so Rise and Rift is gonna draw your whole deck, even if you're not mana positive.
I mean, the pieces are all here.
If you go on your opponent's step, Collected Company, and hit something like Ignus plus Rise and Rift, you get 2 triggers, and if you turn you just go, I don't know, Hazaret's Monument or Birshi, even if you're not going to go mana positive, you're going to go mana neutral, you're going to draw your whole deck via Rise and Rift.
So the player Togek on Magic Online managed to 5-0 with this. This is a visionary deck building. I
love
just
this deck.
I think it's designed to get like a screenshot of what is the biggest possible Devilish Valet before Magic Online like stops calculating it.
The Devilish Valet has to be the most exponential creature to date, right? Like pretty like alongside Academy Manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean this one is cleaner. It just doubles.
Double.
But yeah. And my pick for the worst combo deck in the dump is actually not this one, but it's a deck that I'm calling Winota-less Winota. This is again from Europer. Jeez, they're really going for it this week. I mean, yeah, they're a great player, obviously. They're frequently in the 5-0s in multiple formats, but this deck is like you took your Winota deck, Gathering Dust since the ban, cut the Winotas, cut the Tovolar's Huntmasters, and you're like, you know what would hit the spot is if I put Combat Celebrants in, and then play Jaxus the Troublemaker to like copy the Combat Celebrant a bunch of times.
That's it. You just go infinite.
I mean, you'll run out of red eventually, but yeah, this allows you to keep attacking with Combat Celebrant.
You don't. You never run out of red. Red is infinite. That's just the way of life.
We've seen this as well. You can do this with the Chapter 3 of Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Can also combo with Combat Celebrant.
And it's featuring 4 Fables of Hullbreaker.
So I don't believe in this deck at all, but it works.
If it works, how can you change it, right?
Exactly.
Kurusu, why are you playing Legend Predator in your Vannifar deck? Kurusu, you hurt my very soul. And 2 Unlicensed cards in the sideboard, of course.
Of course.
I hate everybody.
So those are my picks for Pioneer Morde.
Okay.
What about you? Anything catch your eye? Anything we should talk about before we sign off here?
In Pioneer, I said my things about what I love, but I'm gonna jump to Modern for a few decks. First of all, I want to talk about how, why, and why does it hurt my soul so much, again, why, about this Asmo Imperial Recruiter deck.
Mono white Asmo.
It isn't mono white, it's Boros. But the thing is, so, let's say you're playing an Imperial Recruiter deck. You're gonna be like, okay, I need a lot of targets for it. What if I tell you your Imperial Recruiter deck can only get Esper Sentinel, Canonist, Ingenious Smith, Spellskite, and Talia's Lieutenant? And that's it. You're playing 2 Dispatch, and you're playing an Ursa Saga package as well, alongside 4 Asmo. Your sideboard is almost 11 different cards, mostly one-offs. And it's not like they're mostly Saga targets. No. You have random cards like 1 Rest in Peace in your Oval Chase Daredevil Underworld Cookbook deck, which features a playset of Daredevil, and you have Rest in Peace in your sideboard.
I mean, it looks mono white to me because like there's not even Regavans here. The creature suite is Esper Sentinel, Aethersworn Canonist, Ingenious Smith, and like a 1 Thalia's Lieutenant. Why is that here?
Why is the Thalia's Lieutenant here? Why are there 4 recruiters here? Why are there more black sources than red sources in this deck?
Is that true?
Yep.
There's 4 Concealed Courtyard, 1 Godless Shrine, 2 okay.
Why? I need a god to explain why.
Well, the player Migley keeps their secrets en route to a 5-0. Congrats to them.
Congrats. Then, followed by that, I want to talk about a deck that I have loved the concept from the first day, which is Jeskai Stoneblade with Fervent Champion. The synergy between Sword of Fire and Ice and Fervent Champion is just amazing, because it equips for 0, and you're just playing like a control deck that all of a sudden can just, for 1 red mana, put you in an awkward spot. Because if they have a sword down, you always have to be careful with 1 red mana, they can get a 3/3 haste first strike creature on your way with protection from Izzet.
I mean, what I find so cool about this is that, like, let's say that their first play is Sword of Fire and Ice. And you're like, well, what a joke, Sword of Fire and Ice on an empty board on turn 3. Next turn, they can play Ranger Captain of Eos, go find the Fervent Champion, cast the Fervent Champion. It has haste, so they can be attacking you with an equipped sorted up creature on the next turn.
And they can even sacrifice the Ranger to protect it if you're playing like Izzet and make sure it equips.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So it makes sure you will have a 3/3 with protection from red against decks like Porktide, which is insane.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, Fervent Champion is one of those cards that, you should own a playset. It's been reprinted a bunch of times, so it's not like in any danger of being expensive, but it's like super unique. Yeah. Even though it does not work the way I want with Reality Chip. It works with the swords, it works with like Sunforger, it works with all kinds of cool stuff.
Exactly. Then I have 2 final decks I want to discuss. First off, Upheaval Affinity, because I just love Upheaval. There's nothing much more than that. It's just playing Ursa to get a lot of mana and Upheaval people, because who doesn't love Upheaval? My only problem is it only plays 3 Ursa Saga instead of 4. But that's just the usual.
3 Reality Chips on this list.
Oh, look at that chip.
I mean, look at all the mana here. 4 Mox Amber, 4 Moonsnare Prototype, 2 Springleaf Drum, 4 Urzas.
I love it. Just everything makes mana. And finally, congrats to the worst card I have seen in a 5-0 dump since I have made some really bad decisions myself. Springleaf Avenger. So I'm actually gonna read this card because I have confidence that nobody knows what I'm talking about. 5 mana 6/5, ninjutsu for 4. When it hits your opponent, you get a bad Eternal Witness trigger. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand.
So it's a 5-drop for a 6/5, but it's pretty cheap. I mean, ninjutsu for 4.
You can get the dream of bouncing back a Season Pyro.
I know it sounds bad, but like, compare Fallen Shinobi. We used to play Fallen Shinobi, and that card was terrible.
I mean, yeah.
It's almost the exact same pattern, right? 5 to cast, 4 to ninjutsu.
Dan, if you're comparing a card to Fallen Shinobi trying to say it's not terrible, we are not going down the right path.
This is as powerful as a Modern Horizons card. Just gonna...
If I ever That argument is gonna be good if I ever see you making a 5-0 with Shade Avenger.
My first ever 5-0 will be with
Shade Avenger.
My first 5-0.
But yeah, besides that, finally congrats to Ant getting another 5-0 with Crabvine, and then it was getting played by Canister, and finally Azorius Control playing Timeless Dragon, because who doesn't love Timeless Dragon? What a beautiful card.
Oh, Ant didn't get a 5-0. He got a 10th place in the challenge.
Even better. Love you, Anthony.
He went 6-2.
Yeah, he was talking to me. He was like, I might get the... He sent me a message saying, okay, I might get top 8. And I text back like 15 minutes later. He was like, I didn't get the top 8.
Oh.
He was like, I might... Oh.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. And then Canister took his deck for a spin. So congrats to Anthony as per usual. Love you, bad. But yeah, that's it for Modern as well. Nothing too insane. But the meta keeps changing and I keep loving it.
Yeah, I don't consider these decks evidence of the meta changing at all, but there's some of the fun that you can have.
We're finally free from the curse of the token. People are back to not being able to afford 4 colors, so people can go back to relaxing.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay. So all that chatter coincided with people having access to the entire catalog.
It was not a coincidence. It was like people finally can test that deck, so of course it's going to be an overwhelming influx. You will see the crying stop over the following days.
Well, we're going to keep our eye on both formats, as we always do, but for now it's time to shift gears, so we're going to wrap it up for this episode. We will be back on Monday with a closer look at our card of the week, which is going to be Ob Nixilis the Adversary, and we'll tell you a little bit about our testing as well.
Exactly. So have a nice night, everybody. Bye-bye!
Deck lists for this episode can be viewed at our homepage, faithlessbrewing.com. And tune in next week for a post-mortem on Ob Nixilis the Adversary, plus testing results with moderation and Ginny Faye. Support for this podcast is provided by brewers like you. If you like what we do, you can join our community at patreon.com/faithlessbrewing for Discord access, bonus content, and more. That's all for today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.